Awakening in a strange world, Captain Sarah Chen's eyes fluttered open, her vision blurry and unfocused. The familiar hum of the International Space Station's life support systems was absent, replaced by an eerie silence. As her senses slowly returned, she became aware of a soft surface beneath her, not the cold, metallic floor of the ISS, but something earthly. Sarah sat up with a start, her astronaut's instincts kicking in as she surveyed her surroundings. She was in a small, sparsely furnished room with white walls and a single window. Sunlight streamed through, casting long shadows across the floor. This was definitely not the space station. "What the hell?" she muttered, her voice hoarse from disuse. The last thing she remembered was conducting a routine experiment in the ISS's laboratory module. There had been a bright flash, a sensation of falling, and then nothing. Sarah swung her legs off the bed, noticing she was dressed in a simple white gown instead of her familiar flight suit. Her muscles felt weak, as if she hadn't used them in weeks. She stumbled to the window, gripping the sill for support as she gazed outside. The view that greeted her was both familiar and alien. A cityscape sprawled before her, with sleek skyscrapers reaching towards a clear blue sky. But something was off. The architecture was subtly different, the vehicles on the streets below unlike any she had seen before, and in the distance, a massive structure loomed, a towering spire that seemed to defy the laws of physics, its top disappearing into the clouds. A knock at the door startled Sarah from her reverie. Before she could respond, it swung open, revealing a tall, dark-skinned man in a white coat. He smiled warmly, but there was a hint of caution in his eyes. "Ah, Captain Chen, you're awake. How are you feeling?" His accent was vaguely British, but with an unfamiliar lilt. Sarah tensed, her mind racing. "Where am I? Who are you?" The man's smile faltered slightly. "My name is Dr. Aidan Becky. You're in the Quantum Displacement Recovery Center in New Alexandria. I understand you must be confused, but I assure you, you're safe here." "New Alexandria?" Sarah echoed, her brow furrowing. "I've never heard of it. What country is this?" Dr. Mbeki hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "Captain Chen, what I'm about to tell you may be difficult to believe, but I need you to keep an open mind. You're on Earth, but not the Earth you know." Sarah's heart raced as the implications of his words sank in. "What do you mean, not the Earth I know?" "We believe you've undergone what we call a quantum displacement event," Dr. Mbeki explained. "Somehow, you've been transported from your universe to ours. This is a parallel Earth, similar in many ways to your own, but with significant differences." Sarah's mind reeled. Parallel universes were the stuff of science fiction and theoretical physics, not something she ever expected to encounter firsthand. That's impossible," she stammered. Dr. Miki's expression was sympathetic. "I understand your skepticism, but I assure you it's very real. We've encountered cases like yours before, but they're extremely rare. Your arrival has caused quite a stir in the scientific community." Sarah sank back onto the bed, her legs suddenly unable to support her. How long have I been here?" "You materialized in our world 3 weeks ago," Dr. Mbeki replied. "You've been in a coma-like state while your body adjusted to the quantum shift. We weren't sure you'd ever wake up." Sarah's training kicked in, helping her process the flood of information. "My crew," she said suddenly. "The other astronauts on the ISS, did they come through too?" Dr. Mbeki shook his head. "I'm afraid not. As far as we can tell, you're the only one who made the transition." A wave of guilt and grief washed over Sarah. Her crew, her friends, were they searching for her? Did they think she was dead? And what about her family back on Earth, her Earth? "I need to get back," she said, her voice firm despite the tremor in her hands. "There has to be a way." Dr. Mbiki's expression grew serious. "Captain Chen, I understand your desire to return home. But the truth is, we don't fully understand how you got here, let alone how to send you back. The quantum mechanics involved are beyond our current level of scientific understanding. Sarah stood up, her determination overriding her physical weakness. Then we'll figure it out. I'm not giving up. There has to be a way, and I'm going to find it. Dr. Mbeki nodded, a glimmer of admiration in his eyes. Your resolve is admirable, Captain, and I assure you, our best minds are working on the problem. But for now, you need to rest and recover. There's much for you to learn about our world. As if on cue, a distant rumble shook the building, causing the lights to flicker. Dr. Mbeki's expression darkened. What was that? Sarah asked, her astronaut's instincts on high alert. That, Dr. Mbeki said grimly, is why your arrival couldn't have come at a more crucial time. Our world is facing a threat unlike anything we've ever encountered, and your unique perspective might just be the key to our survival. Sarah moved to the window, her eyes drawn to a strange, shimmering distortion in the sky above the distant spire. What kind of threat? Dr. Mbeki joined her at the window, his voice low and urgent. Aliens, Captain Chen. We are at war with beings from beyond our universe, and if we don't find a way to stop them soon, both our worlds, and countless others, may cease to exist. As Sarah stared at the alien anomaly in the sky, a mix of fear and determination coursed through her. She may have lost her own world, but she'd be damned if she'd let this one fall. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she would face them head-on. After all, she was a child of Earth, any Earth, and humanity's ingenuity and resilience were her birthright. Little did Sarah know, her journey was just beginning, and the fate of 2 universes would soon rest in her hands. Uncovering the truth. The days that followed Sarah's awakening were a whirlwind of briefings, medical examinations, and cultural orientation sessions. As her strength returned, so did her determination to understand this new world she found herself in. Dr. Mbeki proved to be an invaluable guide, patiently explaining the similarities and differences between Sarah's Earth and this parallel version. The broad strokes of history were familiar: world wars, technological revolutions, space exploration, but the details diverged in fascinating ways. In our world, Dr. Mbeki explained as they walked through the gleaming corridors of the Quantum Displacement Recovery Center, the Cold War ended differently. Instead of collapsing, the Soviet Union reformed, leading to a more balanced global power structure. This accelerated technological progress in ways your world didn't experience. Sarah nodded, her eyes drawn to a holographic display showing the towering spire she'd seen from her window. And that? We certainly don't have anything like that back home. Ah, the quantum needle, Dr. Mbeki said with a hint of pride. It's our crowning achievement, a space elevator that reaches beyond the atmosphere. It's revolutionized our access to orbit and beyond. As impressive as the technological marvels were, Sarah couldn't shake the sense of urgency that permeated everything. The distant rumbles she'd heard on her first day awake had become more frequent, and she often caught glimpses of strange aircraft patrolling the skies. Tell me more about these aliens, Sarah pressed as they entered a secure briefing room. You said they're from beyond our universe. Dr. Mbeki's expression grew serious as he activated a holographic display. We call them the Void Striders. They first appeared 3 years ago, emerging from what we now know are quantum rifts, tears in the fabric of reality itself. The hologram showed writhing, otherworldly forms that seemed to defy description. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine as she watched the creatures phase in and out of existence, leaving destruction in their wake. At first, we thought they were simply exploring, perhaps as confused by us as we were by them, Dr. Mbeki continued, but it soon became clear their intentions were far from peaceful. They began harvesting resources, entire cities, even seemingly transporting them back to wherever they came from. Sarah leaned closer, studying the footage of the aliens' attacks. Her scientific mind raced, analyzing their movements and tactics. Have you been able to communicate with them at all? Dr. Mbeki shook his head. Their biology, their very existence, seems to operate on principles we can barely comprehend. Traditional methods of communication have failed entirely. A thought struck Sarah. Wait, you said they started appearing 3 years ago. That's around the time we started our quantum entanglement experiments on the ISS in my world. Dr. Mbiki's eyes widened. Fascinating. We theorized that the Void Strider's incursions might be linked to quantum experimentation, but we've never had direct evidence. Your experience could be the missing piece we've been looking for. Before Sarah could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. The holographic display flickered, showing a real-time feed of the city. A massive rift was opening in the sky, pulsing with eldritch energy. They're attacking again, Dr. Mbiki said grimly. Come with me. There's something you need to see. They rushed through the corridors, joining a stream of personnel heading towards a fortified bunker deep beneath the building. As they descended, Sarah caught glimpses of advanced weaponry and high-tech defensive systems unlike anything she'd seen before. The bunker itself was a hive of activity, filled with banks of computers and massive view screens. At the center stood a striking woman with close-cropped silver hair, barking orders with the authority of a seasoned commander. Captain Chen, Dr. Mbiki said, meet General Ava Steele, head of Earth's Defense Forces. General Steele turned, fixing Sarah with an appraising look. So, you're our visitor from another Earth. I hope you're ready for a trial by fire, Captain. We need every able mind we can get. Sarah straightened, falling back on her military training. I'm ready to help in any way I can, General. Steele nodded approvingly. Good, because right now we're fighting a losing battle. Our weapons can hurt them, but we can't stop their incursions. We need a new approach, and fast. As if to emphasize her point, the bunker shook with a massive impact. On the view screens, Sarah watched in horror as writhing tentacles of impossible geometry reached down from the rift, grasping at buildings and vehicles. What can I do? Sarah asked, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. General Steele's eyes gleamed with a fierce determination. You have knowledge of quantum mechanics from a different perspective. Work with our scientists. Find a way to close these rifts, or better yet, take the fight to their home dimension. As Sarah nodded her agreement, a young officer burst into the room, his face pale with shock. General, we're detecting another quantum displacement event, but it's massive. All eyes turned to the main view screen. Above the city, a second rift was forming, but this one was different. Instead of the swirling chaos of the Void Strider's portal, this new rift shimmered with a familiar blue glow. Sarah's heart leaped into her throat as a massive object began to emerge from the rift. Its form was unmistakable, a collection of cylindrical modules, solar arrays, and robotic arms. That's impossible, Sarah whispered. Dr. Mbiki turned to her, his eyes wide. What is it, Captain? What are we seeing? Sarah's voice was filled with a mix of awe and disbelief as she answered, It's the International Space Station. My International Space Station. Somehow, it's followed me here. As the ISS fully materialized in the skies above New Alexandria, Sarah realized that the rules of reality she'd always known were crumbling around her. Whatever was coming next, it was clear that the fate of 2 worlds, and perhaps the entire multiverse, hung in the balance. And somehow, she knew she would be at the center of it all. Allies from another Earth. The appearance of the International Space Station hovering above New Alexandria sent shockwaves through both the scientific community and the general population. For Sarah, it was a beacon of hope, a familiar piece of home in this strange new world. We need to establish contact immediately, Sarah insisted, her eyes fixed on the view screen showing the orbital outpost. If the station made it through, there's a chance my crew did too. General Steele nodded, her tactical mind already racing. Agreed. If we can combine our technology with theirs, it might give us an edge against the Void Striders. She turned to her communications officer. Open a channel on all frequencies. Let's welcome our visitors. As the comm officer worked, Dr. Mbeki approached Sarah, his expression thoughtful. This is unprecedented, Captain Chen. The energy required to displace an entire space station across dimensions. It's astronomical. Sarah's brow furrowed as she considered the implications. Could it be related to the experiment we were running when I was displaced? We were pushing the boundaries of quantum entanglement, trying to achieve instantaneous communication across vast distances. Before Dr. Mbeki could respond, a crackle of static filled the command center. A familiar voice, tinged with confusion and relief, came through the speakers. "This is Commander Jack Harper of the International Space Station. We're not sure where we are or what's happened. Is anyone receiving this?" Sarah's heart leaped. She grabbed the microphone, her voice steady despite her racing pulse. "Jack, it's Sarah. You're not going to believe this, but you've traveled to a parallel Earth. I've been here for weeks." There was a moment of stunned silence before Jack's voice returned, filled with emotion. "Sarah, my God, we thought we'd lost you. 1 minute you were there, the next, gone. And now this. What the hell is going on?" As Sarah began to explain the situation, alarms blared throughout the bunker. On the main view screen, a massive void strider rift was opening dangerously close to the ISS. General Steele's voice cut through the chaos. "We need to protect that station. All available defensive platforms focus fire on the rift. Buy them some time." Sarah watched in awe as energy beams lanced up from the city, striking the edges of the rift. The tear in reality seemed to recoil, its expansion slowing. "Jack," Sarah said urgently, "you need to move the station. You're in danger. Can you fire the maneuvering thrusters?" "Negative," Jack replied, tension evident in his voice. "Whatever brought us here drained most of our power. We're sitting ducks up here." Dr. Mbeki stepped forward, his eyes bright with an idea. "The quantum needle. We can use it to retrieve the station. It's risky, but it might be our only chance." General Steele didn't hesitate. "Do it. Captain Chen, you're with me. We're going up." What followed was a frantic race against time. Sarah found herself in a high-speed elevator, rocketing up the interior of the massive space elevator. As they ascended, she could see the battle raging outside, sleek fighter craft engaged with writhing void strider entities, while larger ships fired continuously at the encroaching rift. At the top of the quantum needle, a specially designed retrieval craft awaited them. Sarah's astronaut training kicked in as she and General Steele suited up. "I never thought I'd be doing a spacewalk in the middle of an alien invasion," Sarah muttered as they prepared to launch. General Steele's lips quirked in a grim smile. "Welcome to our world, Captain." The retrieval craft shot out from the top of the space elevator, streaking towards the ISS. As they approached, Sarah could see the familiar form of her home for the past year, now surrounded by the swirling chaos of battle. With practiced precision, they maneuvered alongside the station. Sarah and General Steele exited the craft, using their suit thrusters to close the gap. As they reached the airlock, Sarah saw a familiar face through the window, Jack, his eyes wide with disbelief and relief. The next few minutes were a blur of activity as they attached tether lines and power cables. With a massive effort, they began to guide the station towards the quantum needle, using their craft's engines to supplement the station's depleted thrusters. As they moved, Sarah couldn't help but marvel at the sight below. New Alexandria gleamed like a jewel, its advanced architecture a stark contrast to the cities she knew. And all around, the battle raged, humanity fighting with everything it had against an enemy that defied comprehension. Suddenly, a tendril of void energy lashed out, narrowly missing the station. Sarah's heart raced as she realized how exposed they were. "We're not going to make it," General Steele said, her voice tense. "That rift is expanding too quickly." Just then, Sarah's radio crackled to life. It was Dr. Mbeki, his voice filled with excitement. "Captain, we've analyzed the data from your arrival and the station's displacement. I think we found a way to close the rifts." Sarah's mind raced, connecting the dots. The quantum entanglement experiment. Could we use it to disrupt the Void Strider's connection to our reality? Precisely, Dr. Mbeki confirmed. But we'll need to modify the equipment on your station. It's our only shot. As they finally docked with the quantum needle, Sarah knew that the real challenge was just beginning. They had the means to potentially end the Void Strider threat, but implementing it would require all of their ingenuity, courage, and a good dose of luck. With her old crew from one Earth and her new allies from another, Sarah prepared to take the fight to the invaders. The fate of 2 worlds, and perhaps countless others, hung in the balance. As they rushed to prepare their makeshift weapon, Sarah couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. This was humanity at its best, resourceful, determined, and unbreakable in the face of impossible odds. Whatever came next, she knew they would face it together. The alien threat emerges. The Quantum Needle's docking bay was a hive of frantic activity as Sarah, her ISS crewmates, and the scientists of this parallel Earth worked to modify the quantum entanglement equipment. Time was of the essence. Outside, the battle against the Void Striders raged on with increasing intensity. Commander Jack Harper wiped sweat from his brow as he helped Sarah calibrate a delicate array of sensors. "I still can't believe this is happening," he muttered. "1 minute we're running routine experiments, the next we're in the middle of an alien invasion on a parallel Earth." Sarah offered a grim smile. "Trust me, I've had weeks to process it, and I'm still in shock. But right now, we might be these people's only hope." Dr. Mbeki rushed over, his tablet displaying a complex series of equations. "We've finished the calculations. If this works, we should be able to create a quantum resonance that will destabilize the Void Strider's connection to our reality." General Steele, who had been coordinating the defense from a makeshift command center, joined them. "Whatever you're going to do it fast. Our outer defenses are failing. We've got maybe an hour before they breach the city's shields." As if to emphasize her point, a massive explosion rocked the quantum needle. Sarah stumbled, catching herself on a nearby console. Through the windows, she could see a Void Strider entity larger than any she'd witnessed before, its impossible geometry twisting as it phased in and out of reality. "That's new," Jack said, his voice tight with tension. Dr. Mbeki's eyes widened as he studied the readings on his tablet. "It's not just bigger. The energy signatures are off the charts. I think it's their leader." Sarah's mind raced. If we can take out their leader, maybe the rest will retreat. General Steele nodded, her expression grim. "It's worth a shot, but how do we get close enough?" Sarah turned to Jack, an idea forming. "The ISS. If we can detach it from the quantum needle and maneuver it close to that thing, we might have a chance." Jack's eyes widened as he realized what she was suggesting. "Sarah, that's suicide. Even if we could get close enough, the station wasn't designed for this kind of stress. It would tear apart." "We don't have a choice," Sarah insisted. "It's our best shot at ending this." After a moment of tense silence, Jack nodded. "All right, let's do it." What followed was a blur of activity as they prepared for the most dangerous space mission in 2 worlds' histories. The quantum entanglement device was hastily mounted on the exterior of the ISS, while every available power source was rerouted to strengthen the station's structural integrity fields. As they made final preparations, Sarah took a moment to look out at the city below. New Alexandria's gleaming towers were scared and burning, its advanced defenses struggling against an enemy they were never designed to face. But amidst the chaos, she could see the resilience of its people, emergency responders rushing to help the injured, civilians forming impromptu rescue teams. "Ready for launch," Jack's voice came over the comm, snapping Sarah back to the present. With a series of metallic clangs, the ISS detached from the quantum needle. Sarah, Jack, and a small team of volunteers from both Earths were aboard, each knowing the risks they faced. As they maneuvered towards the massive Void Strider entity, Sarah couldn't help but marvel at the sight. It was like nothing she'd ever seen, a writhing mass of tentacles and impossible angles, seeming to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Energy levels are spiking. Dr. Miki's voice crackled over the radio from the quantum needle. Whatever that thing is, it's preparing for something big. Sarah gritted her teeth as she adjusted their trajectory. Then let's not give it the chance. As they closed in, the Void Strider seemed to notice them. A tendril of pure darkness lashed out, narrowly missing the station. Structural integrity at 80% and falling, Jack reported, his voice strained. We can't take many hits like that. Almost there, Sarah muttered, her eyes fixed on the targeting display. Just a little closer. Suddenly, a blinding light filled the station. Sarah shielded her eyes, momentarily disoriented. When her vision cleared, she gasped. The massive Void Strider entity had opened what could only be described as an eye, a swirling vortex of colors and energies that defied description. And in that moment, Sarah understood. It's not just their leader, she breathed. It's a gateway. They're trying to bring their entire world through. The realization galvanized her. With a series of precise adjustments, she brought the ISS into perfect position. Now, she shouted. Jack slammed his hand down on the activation switch. The quantum entanglement device hummed to life, its energy building to a crescendo. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, with a silent flash that seemed to ripple through reality itself, a wave of energy burst forth from the ISS. The effect on the Void Strider entity was immediate and catastrophic. Its impossible form began to warp and twist, the eye-like portal collapsing in on itself. A keening sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere filled the air as the creature thrashed in apparent agony. It's working. Dr. Miki's excited voice came over the comm. The quantum resonance is destabilizing their connection to our reality. But their victory was short-lived. As the massive entity began to disintegrate, its death throes sent shockwaves through space-time. The ISS shuddered violently, alarms blaring throughout the station. We're breaking up, Jack yelled over the cacophony. We need to evacuate. Sarah looked out the window one last time, watching as the Void Strider entities across the battlefield began to waver and fade. They'd done it. They'd saved this Earth. But at what cost? As emergency protocols kicked in and escape pods were prepped for launch, Sarah knew that their ordeal was far from over. They'd won the battle, but the war against the Void Striders and the challenge of returning to their own reality still lay ahead. With a silent prayer, she strapped herself into an escape pod, the fate of two worlds weighing heavily on her mind as they plummeted back towards the Earth below. Humanity's last stand. The escape pod streaked through the atmosphere, its heat shield glowing red-hot as it descended towards New Alexandria. Inside, Sarah gripped the harness tightly, her mind racing with the implications of what they'd just accomplished and what might come next. As the pod's parachutes deployed with a jolt, Sarah caught glimpses of the city below through small viewing ports. The destruction was extensive, with entire blocks reduced to rubble, but amidst the chaos, she could see signs of hope, rescue teams already at work, and the unmistakable absence of the otherworldly Void Striders. The pod touched down with a bone-jarring thud in what appeared to be a makeshift landing zone in a city park. As the hatch hissed open, Sarah was greeted by a team of emergency responders and a familiar face, Dr. Mbeki, looking haggard but relieved. Captain Chen, he said, helping her out of the pod. You did it. The Void Striders are gone. Sarah nodded, her legs wobbly as she adjusted to gravity. For now, but I have a feeling this isn't over. As they made their way to a nearby command post, Sarah was reunited with Jack and the rest of her crew. The joy of their reunion was tempered by the gravity of their situation. They were still stranded in a parallel universe with no clear way home. General Steele approached, her uniform singed and torn but her bearing as commanding as ever. Outstanding work, all of you. You've given us a fighting chance. But we need to debrief quickly. Our sensors are picking up some concerning readings. Inside the command post, holographic displays showed a dizzying array of data. Dr. Mbeki pointed to a series of fluctuating energy signatures. The quantum resonance didn't just disrupt the Void Strider's connection to our reality. It seems to have weakened the barriers between dimensions across the board. Sarah's brow furrowed as she studied the readings. What does that mean for us? It means, General Steele said grimly, that we might have just opened the door to threats from other realities, maybe even worse than the Void Striders. As if on cue, alarms blared throughout the command center. A technician called out, panic evident in his voice, multiple rifts opening. They're everywhere. The main display shifted to show a global view. Tiers in reality were appearing all over the planet, each one spewing forth new and terrifying entities. Some were recognizable, creatures from Earth mythology and legend. Others defied description, their very existence an affront to the laws of physics. My God, Jack whispered, what have we done? Sarah steeled herself, pushing down the wave of guilt threatening to overwhelm her. We did what we had to do. Now we need to fix it. Dr. Mbeki nodded, his fingers flying over a holographic keyboard. I think I might have a solution. The quantum entanglement device you used against the Void Striders. We could modify it, turn it into a sort of dimensional anchor. An anchor? Sarah asked, her scientific curiosity piqued despite the dire circumstances. Yes, Dr. Mbeki explained. If we can generate a stable quantum field around the planet, we might be able to reinforce the barriers between dimensions, sealing the rifts and pushing back these new invaders. General Steele considered this for a moment. What do you need? Power, Dr. Mbeki said. More power than we've ever generated before, and we'll need to distribute the field globally. Jack stepped forward, an idea forming. The ISS, or what's left of it. If we can salvage the solar arrays and combine them with your technology, we could create a network of orbital platforms, Sarah finished, catching onto his train of thought, each one generating a part of the quantum field. General Steele nodded, a spark of hope in her eyes. It's a long shot, but it's the best plan we've got. I'll coordinate global defense forces to buy us time. You all focus on making this happen. What followed was a frantic race against time. As battles raged across the globe, Sarah and her team worked tirelessly to salvage what they could from the remains of the ISS and integrate it with the advanced technology of this parallel Earth. Days blurred into nights as they labored, sleep becoming a luxury they could ill afford. Reports came in from around the world, cities falling to mythical beasts, entire regions warped by alien physics, reality itself seeming to fray at the edges. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of work, the orbital platforms were ready for deployment. As the last of the satellites was loaded into a launch vehicle, Sarah turned to her team, a mix of her own crew and the brilliant scientists of this world who had become allies and friends. I won't lie to you, she said, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. This is our last shot. If this doesn't work, but if our worlds, and who knows how many others, will fall. But I believe in us, in what we can accomplish together. Jack placed a hand on her shoulder, a gesture of solidarity. Whatever happens, Sarah, it's been an honor. As the launch countdown began, Sarah looked out over the battered but unbowed city of New Alexandria. In that moment, she felt the weight of two worlds on her shoulders and the unbreakable spirit of humanity burning bright within her. The rockets ignited, and the final pieces of their desperate plan soared into the sky. As the orbital platforms took their positions, Sarah knew that the next few moments would determine the fate of not just this Earth, but countless realities beyond. With a deep breath, she gave the order that would either save everything or doom it all. Activate the quantum field. A new dawn for two Earths. The command center fell silent as Sarah's order echoed through the room. On the main display, they watched as the network of orbital platforms began to power up, each one emitting a pulsing blue energy that rapidly expanded to envelop the Earth. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, with a flash that momentarily blinded everyone watching, the quantum field burst into life. The effect was immediate and awe-inspiring. Across the globe, the dimensional rifts began to shrink and close. The invading creatures from other realities howled in rage and confusion as they were forced back through the closing tiers in space-time. Sarah held her breath, her eyes fixed on the readings streaming across the screens. "Come on," she muttered. "Hold together." As the minutes ticked by, the tension in the command center was palpable. Slowly but surely, the number of active rifts began to decrease. 10,000, 5,000, 1,000. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the last rift winked out of existence. For a moment, there was stunned silence. Then, as the realization of what they'd accomplished sank in, cheers erupted throughout the command center. Sarah found herself engulfed in a group hug with Jack and her crew, tears of relief and joy streaming down their faces. General Steele approached, a rare smile on her usually stern face. "You did it, Captain Chen. You saved our world, and quite possibly countless others." As the celebrations continued, Dr. Mbeki pulled Sarah aside, his expression a mix of excitement and concern. "Sarah, there's something you need to see." He led her to a quiet corner of the command center, where a complex array of sensors was displaying data from the quantum field. "The barrier between dimensions is stable now, but look at this." Sarah studied the readings, her scientific mind quickly grasping the implications. It's a bridge," she breathed. "A stable quantum tunnel connecting our two Earths." Dr. Mbeki nodded. "Exactly. It seems that in reinforcing the barriers between realities, we've also created a permanent link between our worlds." The implications were staggering. Sarah's mind raced with the possibilities and the potential dangers. "We'll need to approach this carefully," she said. "The exchange of knowledge and technology between our worlds could advance both of our civilizations by centuries, but it could also lead to conflict if not managed properly." Over the next few weeks, as both Earths began the long process of rebuilding, Sarah found herself at the center of delicate negotiations between the leaders of two worlds. Her unique perspective as a bridge between realities made her an invaluable mediator. A framework for cooperation was established, with strict protocols put in place to regulate travel and information exchange between the two Earths. The quantum needle, once a symbol of one Earth's technological prowess, now became a literal bridge between worlds. As for Sarah and her crew, they were faced with a difficult decision. The stable quantum tunnel meant they could return to their own Earth if they chose. But after everything they'd been through, the bonds they formed with this parallel world was strong. In the end, they decided to split their time between both realities, serving as ambassadors and helping to guide the unprecedented cooperation between two versions of humanity. On the eve of the first official diplomatic summit between the two Earths, Sarah stood atop the quantum needle, looking out over the rebuilt skyline of New Alexandria. Jack joined her, handing her a cup of coffee. "Penny for your thoughts?" he asked. Sarah smiled, taking a sip of the coffee. "Just thinking about how far we've come. A few months ago, I was just an astronaut running experiments on the ISS. Now you're a hero of two worlds," Jack finished with a grin. Sarah shook her head. "We're all heroes. Every person who fought, who didn't give up hope, who worked to rebuild. We showed the best of what humanity can be in any reality." As the sun began to rise, painting the sky in brilliant hues of orange and pink, Sarah felt a profound sense of hope for the future. The road ahead would be challenging, filled with new discoveries and unforeseen obstacles. But she knew that together, the combined ingenuity, courage, and determination of two Earths could overcome anything. The Void Striders and the chaos they had unleashed had nearly destroyed everything. But in facing that threat, humanity had unlocked the key to a future brighter than anyone could have imagined. As delegates from both Earths began to arrive for the summit, Sarah straightened her uniform and prepared to greet them. Whatever challenges the future held, she was ready to face them, not just as a captain or a scientist, but as a bridge between worlds, a guardian of two Earths, and a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity. The dawn of a new era was breaking, and Sarah Chen was ready to help lead the way into a future limited only by the bounds of human imagination and the infinite possibilities of the multiverse.